welcome to the Buddy Book Club. I'm Dylan here with the number one guy I'd want to hold on to as he swam me 15 miles to safety. Keith, what's up, buddy?
I'd make it like 100 yards, and then I'd throw you off my back and say, good luck!
I was going to save him for lingering questions, but as the only swimmer I know, which is you, I don't really understand swimming distances. Like, I know obviously 15 miles or 10, 15 miles, whatever Scott ended up swimming in this book is long, but like, how long have you ever swam? What's the longest you've swam?
Without stopping?
Yeah.
You say I'm a swimmer. I swam in high school. There's more years of my life that I haven't been swimming than I have been swimming at this point.
People don't forget.
Probably like 500 yards in a row. Like, that was the longest race we had to do.
500, but that's a race too. So you didn't do longer in practice. There was never.
No, like our practices would be 3,000 yards, but they would be, you stop and rest, and you stop and go and stop, you know what I mean? So, and then there's walls also, which help.
Yeah.
So you're getting like a break every time you hit a wall, kind of, or more momentum at
That's
least.
why swimming, to me, and hey, sorry to all the people out there that love swimming, it's just such a stupid sport because like you practice is just like go swim. And I guess you could say that about anything.
That's every exercising sport.
Yeah, you could say that about every. But that's why, like, exercising sports in general, I don't get. I'd be bored. All right, here at the Buddy Book Club, Happy New Year to everybody. We're breaking down some bestsellers, and this week we'll be discussing 2016's Before the Fall by Noah Hawley. If you'd like to recommend a book for us to read or reach out to us on any past episodes, you can visit our website, buddybookclub.com. Send us a message on Twitter or Instagram, Buddy Book Club Podcast. You can listen to us on iTunes, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Please download, give us a 5-star review. And if nothing else, follow on social channels. That'd be great. Please and thank you. So, Before the Fall, Keith, recommended by Nevs, and then was also on a list of, I saw some TikTok lists when I was posting something that said my top 10 books. And in there was Red Rising and this book, so I just trusted that person. 3.72 on Goodreads. Hawley, I didn't know this until I started looking into it, but he's best known as the creator and showrunner and writer for the Fargo TV series.
Yeah, he's a prolific writer. He also did like Bones, I think, too.
I think some episodes of Bones, which was less cool than the Fargo TV series.
But yeah, I also thought this was gonna be like a pop punk band. Before the Fall.
Oh,
that's a band song, right? No?
Yeah. Well, it is his fifth novel. I actually was going to ask you that, so I'm glad you brought it up before I get into my book report. What did you think you were getting into when you started reading this book?
Yeah, I didn't know at all it was going to be a plane crash. I wish you told me that before. You literally recommended this before the flight I was about to take, and I'm scared of flying. Yeah, I don't like it. And I was like, wait, what's going on in this book? So that wasn't as fun.
I thought it was going to be somewhat like that Agatha Christie book. I guess it turned out to be something totally different, but we'll talk about that, I'm sure, throughout here. But I'm going to get into my book report quickly. Before the Fall is a story of how far the human body can be pushed if you abstain from sex, drugs, and money. Our main character, Scott, a failing artist but a successful celibate, uses his powers of self-control to survive a plane crash and then swim 50 miles to safety, all with a 4-year-old boy strapped to his back. He should come back to a ticker tape parade, but instead he goes into hiding, casting doubts as to whether his survival was heroism or some sort of Ocean 11's type job to get his webbed hands onto hundreds of millions of dollars the dead had left behind. A tale of randomness of fate, humanity, and whether societally we pursue truth or entertainment. By the end of the book, I found myself pursuing one single question. Do I care?
Okay. Wow, that was deep. I didn't know that's what the book was supposed to be about. I like it.
I'm not even sure. I still don't even know what anything's about.
I think it's a solid B+. B+,
wow.
I mean, the thing is, I just don't know if it was good or bad.
That's
I don't know.
The best part. That's what I was going for. That was my goal. If you actually read it, you're like, oh, this is circular logic. It makes no sense. And like at some points he's trying to be funny, but it still makes no sense to the story. So right. I'm going to take my B+ and run. But with that, let's get into some stock up, stock down. Keith, what do you have for stock up?
Stock up, asking a question to ask a question.
Oh, I had that too.
Oh, really?
Kind of. But yeah.
Did I say that right? Asking a question to someone that asks you a question. Right? Asking a question back. Yeah. So early on in my career, my manager had said, when you're talking to a client and you don't have a good answer, and he said this not patronizing, he said this just like, this is what I do. If you don't have a good answer, you don't know the answer to the question, just ask him a question back. That's all I do. And no one does this better than Scott. He's just doing this all day. He gets in front of the media and they're like, what's it like to be a hero? And he's just like, what do you mean by hero?
Yeah.
What is a hero? They're like, did you sleep with that woman? He's like, what do you mean by sleep? I mean, he perfected this, the whole like push back thing. And as someone that doesn't know a lot of answers and, you know, isn't ready for those type of questions all the time either. Not the hero one. I've never gotten that my entire life. But it's great to see it perform really, really well. And they can go wrong. They can go real wrong. You can mess this up. Have you ever seen the R. Kelly question to a question one? They ask him, do you like teenage girls? He says, what do you mean by teenagers? or he says, how old are we talking?
Yeah.
So that's not how you do it. But Scott did it right. Just philosophical questions left and right, asking questions back, puts everyone else on their toes. Stock up.
We're like, I don't even know now, 110 episodes in like 3 years. 115 in like 3 years in the making. And I'm so glad we're starting 2024 off. It was actually my first stock up was the same thing. It was answering a question with a question, but then I slightly shifted it as I was writing this down to being excessively and knowingly obtuse, because he does that as well, where the reporters, if he was going to actually answer the question, if he wasn't just going to follow up with another question, which I appreciated, they'd ask him something like, how did you get on the plane? Which is a valid question considering he's a starving artist. And
how does anyone go on a plane?
And he goes, how? Well, I walked on with my 2 feet naturally. So he knows what they're asking him, but he's like taking everything literally. The way the audiobook presented it was he was doing this not as a joke. He wasn't doing it to be funny or to make them pissed off. He was more this like fake philosophical kind of, well, I don't know, how does one get on a plane, you know? What is a plane but a car in the sky, you know?
Times a flat circle type thing.
So I appreciated it. I thought a lot of his stuff, a lot of the like his commentary when it came to this should be used, like people should use that as a template when they're in tight situations with the media and just go that route, because he didn't come off like a dick. He came off aloof for sure, but kind of kept himself away from any kind of trigger thing that he would say that would then continue the news cycle forever.
Well, what the media and trained like instigators will do is they'll just ask a yes or no question, and when they ask to clarify, they just say it's yes or no. That's like, so they'll be like, so were you there that night? And they're like, what night? And it's like, oh, it's a yes or no question. Just answer the question. Like, were you there or not? And then it makes the person that's like answering it look guilty. Like they don't answer it, even though you just want to understand like what night you're talking about. Let me clarify. And by there, do you mean like at the party or like, you know, so there's just, they put him in a box like that. So they'd never give him the opportunity to ask these open-ended questions back. They just give him a yes or no question.
Well, I feel like Bill Cunningham tried to do that to Scott when they had their interview thing. And eventually he would just say, no, I'm not going to answer. I'm just not going to answer that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, well, Bill Cunningham was kind of an idiot. So that also helped him.
Yeah, I agree. So what do you have for your second stock up?
Next stock up, French toast hands stock up. I don't know if you caught this. This is the beginning of the book.
No.
But they were talking about, I think, maybe his like high school, and you know, they're like, oh, I played receiver. You know, you had French toast hands, which I've never heard in my entire life, which I'm buying because they say it as an insult. I think it's a compliment. What do you want to have hands, D-man, in football or baseball? What do you want?
I don't know, sticky hands,
soft, delicate hand. You want to catch that ball, right?
Yeah,
you don't even hear it when it catches the hands. Or you're playing volleyball or anything like that. Soft hand. Yeah. I'm all for it. Also, what's another compliment you talk about someone's hands? They got sweet hands. You know, those are nice.
Ooh, your masseuse?
French toast. That guy's sweet. That guy's a good athlete. You know, that's what French toast is right there. And then lastly, and stay with me, D-man, you got strong hands. What are French toasts made out of? You dip it in what? Egged? Your hands are yolked.
Oh.
All right, I'm out. I'll see you guys later. Have a good night.
I want you, because, you know, everyone around Christmas usually gets like a massage gift certificate or something, even though no one ever gets massages. I want you to take that massage gift certificate you got, go to the local masseuse, and like halfway through just go, oh, wow, you got French toast hands. And I want to see what they say. You report back to us and you let me know.
Yeah, we'll do.
I like that one, though. French toast hands. I'll use it on you next time.
Yeah.
Next time I see you throwing the pigskin around. My second stock up is destroying someone's house and calling it art, pretty genius move, honestly. I know Scott was in an odd mental state when he was at that billionaire woman's house and just needed to get his art out. Sometimes you just gotta let a fart out. He just needed to let his art out. And he honestly just destroyed this woman's house. And I think it was like some perspective thing. It's also weird if you do that to someone's house, because that's her living room. And even if she did like it and consider it art, now that's her living room. You can't do anything about that. Granted, she's a billionaire, so I'm sure she just doesn't care.
She also walked in, and he wasn't like, I'm sorry, I just had to do something. He was like, get away from me. I'm in my moment. Like I'm not even me. I'm someone else is taking my hands and painting for me. And I was like, that's a little pretentious, but
yeah, he has the talent though. So
he was also using all of her like probably very expensive lipstick and all these other things around the house. Like couldn't go pick up a couple crayons or something.
Yeah.
What?
Go to the 7-Eleven down the street, grab some Crayola, right, and just do it. But it got me thinking, for us less talented folks, next time you're at a dinner party or something along those lines, and the bubble guts come up, and you have to go. There's nothing you can do. You got to go. If you leave some skid marks, just tell the people, hey, that's art.
Where did you jump to that conclusion from that?
French toast.
Those two things related at all.
I got a French toast mouth right now, Keith. All right, I'm laying out the dulcet tones. Yeah, no, I'm reaching, but yeah, destroying someone's house and calling it art is a stock up.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, I see. You're like destroying someone's bathroom.
Yeah.
Just leaving a fucking absolute log in there, and you're like, oh yeah, same difference.
Hold on a second.
Fair
it's
enough.
In the shape of a Q. That's unobtainable.
All right.
Do you have any other stock ups?
Last one, knowing astronomy or astrology or
Which
whatever one you believe in.
That's astrology.
Both great sciences. Either one.
Astronomy is an actual science. Astrology.
No, yeah, I'm talking about astronomy, but I know you're a big astrology guy, so I just wanted to include that for you. If we're in the middle of the ocean, it's freezing after a plane crash, I got a little concussion, and you were like, we got to decide which direction to go, and I had to point up to the sky. I'm dying because I don't know where the North Star is. I don't know any astronomy stuff. Like, he's like, oh yeah, and there's obviously the Ring of Mormon or whatever. I don't know any astronomy stuff up there, and that will tell me that's east by east west. Would you be able to do that? Like, do you know the North Star? Do you know the Big Dipper?
I think I know the North Star just because it's the brightest star in the sky. But on any given day, I would say, oh, that's the North Star. And if I was swimming, like if I was in a situation where I had to swim that way or die, I'd probably be right 25% of the time.
I also think that everyone says it's the brightest star. That's like we learned Harriet Tubman and all that stuff when we were kids.
Yeah,
but anytime I look at the sky, every night it's different. It's not like, oh, it's always this one, obviously. It's sometimes the other places are brighter. I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy.
Yeah, I don't know. I also think, and maybe I'm making this up, but if you follow the Big Dipper straight up, you find the North Star.
I don't know where the Big Dipper is either. So
well, I don't either. I know what it looks like. I couldn't say like, oh, it's in Sagittarius on the western side.
Yeah. All right.
Scott had a pretty good situation once he just surviving the plane crash is obviously a good situation, but the fact that he also understands astronomy or where the stars are or whatnot, and has been, instead of drinking, has transitioned all of his motivations to swimming in the last 5 years or whatever the case is.
Pretty fortuitous.
Yeah, it worked out really well for him.
Yeah.
So I guess you never know, but I think that's also part of the point of the book. Granted, I'm not 100% sure, but just the idea that there's this level of randomness, and he just happened to be put in a pretty good randomness situation where everyone else on the plane, not so good. My last stock up was just Jack LaLanne. I had to throw it out there because he was referenced a bunch in the book. I'm not sure why Hawley as a Jack LaLanne thing, or, either way. Were you familiar with Jack LaLanne before this?
No, I thought he was a made-up person. I looked him up mid-book, and I was like, oh, all right. Once I saw the name in actual text rather than the audiobook, I was like, oh, that looks familiar.
I didn't have cable growing up, and in the 90s when he was already pretty old, I think he was probably in his late 70s or early 80s, whatever the case is, he'd be on those Channel 2 shows and stuff like that every now and then, or he'd be on like
PBS.
talk show host. Yeah, PBS. So I would see Jack LaLanne randomly, and they'd show his exploits, or they'd show clips from the old Jack LaLanne show.
Was he Wishbone? Because I know that show on PBS.
No, I don't know that show.
That's how I learned half my history. I don't know.
I was more of Reading Rainbow and Magic School Bus kind of guy.
Oh, okay.
But I honestly don't think anyone had talked about him since his death in 2011, and yeah, so Hawley just brought him back. Back for this. So I respect that his legacy lives on in this book.
Mm-hmm.
What about Stock Downs? What do you got?
Stock Down Mystery.
Ooh.
I thought the book was well written. I thought it was entertaining.
Buddy,
but
we're
I
on the
think
same
the
page.
one element that was missing is the real mystery. Mm-hmm. Obviously, Ben Kipling. He was a guy that you said, oh, like whatever he was doing, the shady business he was doing, that could have caused it. But outside of that, every other character really like got into their life, and we were just like, all right, cool. They're good. They're clear. I really wanted what the order of I wanted it to come down to the end, and I was getting the pulse started quickening at the end when he's getting interviewed, and like we're hearing the plane audio, because I was like, here's the big twist, it's coming. And the three top candidates where I wanted it to, the person that actually crashed the plane, I wanted one, Scott. I would love to if he was actually the bad guy the whole time, and we're in his head, and he's like this pretentious dude that's kind of actually been bad this whole time, but we've been rooting for him. What
was his motivation, do you think? Was it his disaster paintings? Was like, oh, this will get me front page news because I'm in a disaster, even though my chance of survival is like 0?
Yeah, I also think we're setting it up this whole time of like class warfare, and these people don't understand what it's like and all that stuff. You could have twisted it to be like, I did it because these people need to like realization of the real world. I don't know, something like that. I don't know. I think it could have been a nice little twist. One, him. Two would have been Maggie.
Oh, Maggie.
I thought that'd been cool if she got turned down by Scott, and she seems like the sweetheart, 2 kids. That'd be a nice little dark turn. That's where I go. That's my head goes. I want the biggest turn.
She wants to kill her kids?
That's right.
Because
I don't know why she wants to kill her kids.
Spurned her advances because he's celibate?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I'm sick.
I'm also just saying Scott's celibate. He's not. He just wasn't into the billionaire, but whatever.
The third would obviously be JJ. That'd have been great if he was the 4-year-old crashed the plane.
Just rolled a ball under the foot. Like there's a pedal for the gas pedal on an airplane or something like that. He just accidentally rolls his ball in there. And
Right.
It's just terrible happenstance. I'm surprised Gil didn't make your list, because I was thinking, my first inkling was that it was Gil, because Gil was an ex-Israeli military guy or whatever the case is. And it turned out the other guy, who's the guy that was doing the shady deals? Was that Ben Kipling or something like that?
Yeah.
Yeah, it turns out his shady deals were like funding terrorist organizations. Like he was using money, like terrorist money, and like investing them or whatever the case is. So I thought Gil had gotten wind of that, and terrorists, Israel anti-terrorist, sure, and decided to secretly try to take him out.
You think he was like a kamikaze type though?
Well, the fact that his body wasn't found. So his body wasn't found.
He like jumped out,
yeah,
parachuted out.
Exactly, like killed the pilots, jumped out of the airplane, and said, "See you later."
I like how we just changed the book.
Just changed
every book, it just becomes an action book.
I know. Yeah, it's like we're just creating mid-trap books out of nothing. Yeah. But it's funny you said that, because once again we're on the same page. Except my first stock down was marketing, and specifically mysteries / thrillers / pulse quickening suspense novels. I just felt a little bit cheated by the way this book was sold. I mean, even on the cover, and hold on, I'm going to move my mic so I can read this because it's small. It says, "Mesmerizing, one of the year's best suspense novels, New York Times." I was intrigued throughout the book by what caused the plane crash, but at no point did my pulse quicken, or did I grip the book tighter due to an unbearable weight of suspense? I mean, what are we talking about here? This isn't Gone Girl. This isn't The Silent Patient. I know you love The Silent Patient.
I do love it.
I don't even think that Hawley himself would call this a suspense novel. I'm not even sure he cared so much as to the why or the how. I feel like he was more interested in the who.
Whomst, you mean?
Who these people are, their backstories, and then the intertwining and more of the stuff I'm talking about when it comes to like fate and the news and those kind of things, as opposed to why this plane went down. But everything I read afterwards and a little bit before, just in summaries, and when I was saying about how it was a thriller and a suspense novel, and I just didn't feel that. I think that it was improperly marketed to try to hit those big words that people want to read it and feel like it's a page turner. I didn't think this was a bad book by any means. I enjoyed it for the most part. I continued listening to it and wasn't like, let's get this over with. But I didn't find myself really intrigued by what was going on. And I was hoping there was going to be I don't need a twist, but I would hope there would be some sort of interesting reason why this plane went down. And it just turned out to be a spurned lover who decided to kamikaze this plane because he got too fucked up on drugs, I guess. So I just felt like I was cheated a little bit.
You can't market it as like a character study. Like that's what the book is, but you can't market it as that. So I get why they did that. I was a little disappointed that the book was like, yeah, so here's the bad guy. We got introduced to him with like 50 pages left. It's like, well, that's not really a mystery. And it's just like his motivations are, to your point, is just like, yeah, I'm going to kill like 10 people because I'm upset with someone. It's like, oh, so this guy's just the worst person ever? All right.
Yeah, and I think it's mostly about the randomness of it all, that he happened to be on that plane with her, how, and it just so happened to be giant media mogul. The idea that not everything is a conspiracy and some things are just randomness. But at the same time, I'm all for that. But at the same time, if you're going to have a cover and say one of the year's best suspense novels, then I'm intrigued to see what the rest of your list is, because there was no real suspense. And I do get what you're saying towards the end when it was jumping back and forth to the cockpit in there. You were thinking,
yeah, I like that.
Something's going to happen here. And then it fizzled.
I do also like to, I was like, it's so ridiculous that the guy would kill 10 people because he was spurned, and I just said Maggie should have done the same thing. So, yeah, but Maggie at least was like a character we got introduced to early, and there was some backstory that you think that would be part of the main story, whereas this guy wasn't part of any of the other characters we were introduced to, like wasn't involved at all with the family. He's just a random person. But I guess your point is like it's supposed to be random, so. Yeah. Anyways.
Did you have other stock downs?
Last one is a quick one. Just smoking and drinking stock down.
Yeah.
In our last book, we bought cigarettes. I almost went and got a pack of Marlboro Reds and some Virginia Slims, and started smoking those down. But this one...
Those are such different like, literally the opposite cigarette.
That used to be my line. If someone... I would always be like, oh, yeah, I'm a big smoker to anyone that was smoking. And they'd be like, what's your, what pack do you like? And I would always be like, Marlboro Reds or Virginia Slims. And they'd always just be like... It always give me the look like I fucking hate this kid.
So good. That's a great line.
Yeah. Thank you.
It's a very George from Seinfeld kind of line. Just trying to fit in, but also having no idea what the fuck he's talking about.
Yeah, in this book, it seems like if you're not living a clean, alcohol-free life, like anyone that was drinking, I immediately knew was a bad guy. Or anyone who was outside to take a cigarette break, bad guy. There's no good people that were like, I like to have a glass of wine at dinner. There was just like, bad,
savage.
You suck.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't do those
Unless
things.
You're at the farmer's market buying organic beets, then you're a terrible, terrible person. My stack and suck down is the 24-hour news cycle. That just seems like low-hanging fruit. I mean, it's talked about.
A little bit on the nose.
It's a little on the nose, too easy. I get it. But it's a big part of this book, and just the idea that airtime and eyeballs matter, and a story just has to continue to evolve so that they can continue to generate content. We're just like a content-based society, and the 24-hour news cycle is part of that. I'm really thankful. This Christmas, I had my family over here at my house, which was wonderful. But because it was my house, I feel like they didn't want to just necessarily turn on the TV and put CNN on for like 4 hours, which can happen when I'm at their house. And it felt like a really
That's
nice
crazy.
time because those things are tough. And it's a different generation. I understand that. But you're sitting there doing the dishes or whatever you're doing in the kitchen for an hour and you just have CNN going on in the background as you turn to the person next to you and say, can you believe this guy? Or can you believe what they're doing here? It's just not for me. I know it's for some people. That just ain't for me. I'll put on an episode of Seinfeld that I've seen 100 times and just, watch it as background fluff noise. I don't need talking heads yelling at each other about some embargo for an hour. I'm good on that. But obviously, a situation like this, a plane crash, a bunch of rich people go down. It's the sharks are out there. So I get it. It's just I don't know. Obviously, right. This is a societal commentary in this book, right?
I'll get right into one of my hates because of this. This is why I don't like reading real world books, because I'm just like, I already get enough of this. I don't want any of this shit. I want fantasy. And if it's going to be real world, give me espionage or bank robberies or treasure hunt, stuff that's like not, I don't need more Fox News guy. I'm like, I don't want to hear any of this shit. So some of that was like, and that's the reason I didn't really like White Lotus. Have you seen that show? People love that show. Yeah. And I'm like, just a bunch of rich people complaining and then politics. I'm like, don't we get enough of this? Give me some dragons or something that's not this world.
Yeah. Or if you're going to do this world, I feel like we've done a few real world stuff that we enjoyed. I'm like Anxious People, that Stockholm one where they're all in that room.
Yeah. Well, that was another like character study one.
It was a character study one, but it was entertaining and also
super entertaining. Yeah.
It meant something. So that we're not just mouth-breathing idiots who only like fantasy and action stuff. Granted, we are. But that was an enjoyable way to go about real-world stuff, where all the news stuff and the tapping people's phone, I was like, I don't really care that much about that. It's
like what's good about the Mitch Rapp books, I love when we bring this up, but like the bad guys are grounded in some sort of, I understand their world perspective because they grew up this way and this thing and this is how they believe and this is what like drives them. They're not going to do dumb things just to be bad guys. They're just doing things because this is what this guy's just being bad for no reason. Like the book ends and he's like releasing a recording tape and it's like, you just outed yourself. Like why would a smart person that's famous, that's a multimillionaire do this? It doesn't. You're going to put yourself in jail. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, you say that, but then there's people like Alex Jones who
That's true. That's a good point. I guess who this is supposed to be based off of. So it makes good point.
It sounds all
I'll take
like
it back then.
But I agree with you though that there's just no nuance to the Bill Cunningham character. He's just a totally hateable conservative news anchor, like ultra conservative news anchor, and they're bad on both sides. So I like when there's a little nuance to it, because even like you were saying in the Mitch Rapp books, you have these terrorists who are deplorable people. But they're talking about how their village was blown up by a drone when they were, when they were kids, and their entire family was killed, and so it radicalized them. It's like I can understand that. That makes more sense to me than this. I think the point of this one was more of the fact that these news organizations and people in particular just go so deep into these crazy tangents and spend so much time working on these conspiracies and they don't even care about the truth. They're just looking to validate their point,
Right. No, I get that. And I saw what it was doing, and it's very accurate to real world, but I'm also like, I know. Yeah. I don't want to hear any more.
Back to my book report. The only question I asked myself is, do I care? Yeah. And I didn't about that. My last stock down was the 10,000 hour rule. I think some people are familiar with it. I think Malcolm Gladwell was the person who coined it. But basically, if you do something for 10,000 hours, you become a master of it. Gil was a one-man army that had his 10,000 hours in both hard and soft skills of being the best personal bodyguard that there is. And he still got taken down by some drug-addled flyboy with a broken heart. So 10,000 hour rule stuck down.
Wait, so can you explain to me what hard and soft skills are, D-Man?
Hard... Soft skills are like French toast hands, okay?
Okay, perfect. All right, I get it now.
There's boiled egg hands, and there's boiled egg skills, and there's French toast skills, okay? Yeah, so soft skills would be his ability to recognize that this pilot coming on to the plane was on drugs at the moment or had been off a bender. I think his ability to be a good bodyguard would include his ability to understand that someone is not right to fly an airplane when they walk on the airplane. Whether that be chatting with that person, whatever the case is, that would be his soft skills. And then his hard skills would be taking that person down physically and restraining them before they could take the plane off. Did you have a favorite character in this one? And I'm not going to go through the character list. It's basically all the people on the airplane plus Bill Cunningham.
I actually liked and I couldn't find his name. The
husband,
the FBI engineer.
I guess there's a lot more people than I
don't know what his deal was, but I liked him. He was just kind of like a robot, kind of, which I liked.
Yeah.
He was like, yeah, I divorced my wife because she wanted me to talk more, but I adequately talked enough to her, and I was like, nice, this guy gets it.
Yeah, was that wasn't Gus Franklin, right?
That sounds right.
Was it?
That might have been a Franklin. I don't know. I forget his name. Sorry, this is not a great.
Yeah,
I couldn't find the names.
Are you talking? You're talking about the guy who said to not mess with Scott's paintings, right?
Yes,
it's like,
correct.
Hey,
yeah.
glad you took the paintings, O'Brien, or whatever your name is, whatever you want to do, but don't mess with them. Like that's someone's stuff. He was the rational viewer of the whole thing. I feel like he was the reader. That was let's not jump to conclusions kind of situation. I did like his, because everyone has that backstory, like the narratives that are going on for the most part. And they did a short one for him in the beginning and just how he had issues with his wife because he views things as an actuarial, just so matter-of-factly, and, is doing a cost analysis or whatever thing's called for everything. So I feel like I have a little bit of that in me where I can be unemotional and really just thinking, okay, like, is this worth it or not? And so I appreciate that. That's simple as that.
Yeah, I did too. I also wanted to throw a quick one for Rachel Bateman. Tough life. Kidnapped when she's young and then just dies. I thought she should have been the one that survived, not JJ.
Yeah, it was tough for her, and they didn't really get into much of her kidnapping. I feel like they started the kidnapping story, and then just it kind of trickled out.
He saved her, and she went mute as a 9-year-old. It would make more sense, and she would be reliving her trauma, and that would be a much more harder thing for someone to recover from, a second huge traumatic thing under 10 years old. But a 4-year-old, I'm like, all right. This, he's I can't even remember half of this.
Yeah. Who was the other, not Bateman, what was the sister's name that Scott probably ends up with? I thought her husband was pretty hilarious. Doug. I think it's I think Eleanor is her name, and Doug. I thought Doug,
that was your favorite character?
Doug was my favorite character just because he was so hateable, but also so everyman. He was just to drink hip beers and work on a restaurant that he's never going to start. He just kind of putzed around. But he was like all of us in the sense of, you're telling me that if this kid came into our care and he's worth $100 million, and I know your sister's dead, but that's not pretty cool. Talk
about dropping the bag, though. Bro, just have a little empathy for maybe a week, and then you get that money. Then you can do whatever you want. He got too greedy. Keep the eyes on the prize, bud.
Which car should we keep? What do we think about the house in the UK? Should we keep it or should we just visit? Because we'll have. He was asking
good questions. To be fair, I'm not going to blame him for those. And also, she's calling Scott late at night. That's kind of weird, no?
Or he shows up and just stays there, and you come home what's that guy doing on our couch? I think he's definitely a piece of shit. There's no question. But I understand a lot of his points, and to not feel a little bit...
Drinking IPAs and being an artsy dude when you're 40, come on, bro.
Yeah.
Drink a Busch Light one time for me. Play some pickleball.
To pretend like we not all thinking a little bit, Eleanor or whatever is it's JJ's money. It's JJ's money. It's I know it's JJ's money, but we're going to have a per diem that's pretty cool considering where we're living now. So are we at least a little bit excited about that? She's like, my sister's dead. He's like, yeah, but we're alive, so let's enjoy that money.
Also, not taking any of that money to help the restaurant as a non-starter. I feel like that's kind of that's got to be on the table.
Yeah, of course.
He's like, I need $10,000 more, and she's like, we only get $100,000 a month, so no. It's like, huh? Like, what?
The interest alone from JJ's estate is going to pay for anything he's ever going to need, his kids are ever going to need. There's a little left over for the rest of us, you know? Yeah. Throw me a frickin' bone here. Did you have a favorite part of the book? You said that you liked the ending when it...
yeah, I liked the ending, yeah. That was... I think I said pulse quickening, and you said that was a quote from the front. Maybe that was osmosis into me there.
No, I think I added pulse quickening suspense. But,
all right. I came up with that. Yeah. Nice.
Yeah, I thought... I don't know. The ending was pretty good, I guess. Like, just that back and forth, whatnot. You know, a final head-to-head with Scott and Bill Cunningham. I think the original conversation when he talks to the media, though, I like that the most, just because he went so philosophical and whatnot, like we were talking about earlier, that I just accepted it. I was like, I kind of like this guy. So I was cool with that. Also, the idea, as someone who lives on Cape Cod, the idea that there's just someone on Martha's Vineyard just living in a hut doing paintings and stuff like that, I was a little bit jealous of just someone that cared that little or about the things that we as society tells us to care about. Granted, he had like so much hardship in his own life. His sister died in a terrible accident, and he's had, you know, his failing career that he's not proud of and dealing with alcoholism. So yeah, I mean, he's not a happy man by any means, but he found something.
The dude's just destroying houses, going to parties, swimming in their pools. He's kind of living the life. Yeah. I don't know.
That scene was actually pretty cool when he just decides to be sober and just goes swimming nonstop. Just is like in the guy's pool swimming.
Yeah.
It's like, all right.
Yeah. Hey.
Why not? Okay, what'd you love about Before the Fall?
I will say this is a Papa McGonagall, Mama McGonagall classic book right here. This is like one that's on their shelves that I see lying around at the McGonagall household. Yeah, they have like David Lynch or whatever that guy is. Like, you know, all like David Balducci or like James Patterson. Yeah. The ones you see at the airport, like top 20, and you've seen the name 100 times. You don't like, you've only read a few of their books. You pick it up, you're pretty happy. Oh, like that's good. And you like, I would ask my parents like, oh, is this going good? They're like, yeah, great. I'm like, what happens in it? They're like, no idea. No, none. Like, you know, it's one of those books. Which I thought was this.
So you're saying it's right in their wheelhouse, not that they have this.
Exactly.
Book.
No. Yeah, right in their wheelhouse. This is one that's like, you know, they have lying around. They both read it. They couldn't tell you what happened in it. They enjoyed it. Period.
Yeah.
That's it. So, yeah. And I thought that was this.
My stepdad crushes those books. Like, he brought over some James Patterson book, and I was like, aren't his books ghost written at this point? Doesn't he just ghostwrite? And I think the general sentiment is, do we care? Like, it's the same, you know, same thing over and John Grisham stuff. It's like, yeah, whatever. Like, they're fun. They're page turners.
They're like an NCIS or like a CSI episode, but they turn it into a whole book and then, you know, print it and good to go.
Yeah, and there's something to that because we've read some books that are supposed to be that and they're not. So to be able to have that down is a pat on the back for sure.
It's pretty impressive. Yeah.
I thought the dialogue was really good in this. Obviously, Hawley writes screenplays and stories and stuff like that, like for TV. So being good at the dialogue makes a lot of sense. And I thought the give and take was really well done in this. Just the dialogue itself, I was like, oh, I enjoyed this. It felt real. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'd say that I loved the dialogue itself. What else do you like?
I like that the guy, when they actually reached the Long Island, I think it was, that they helped Scott and JJ. So I think if I were vacationing on, let's say, Martha's Vineyard or Cape Cod or Long Island, and I was at the beach and some dude just pulls up with a kid on his back and is like, hey, bring me to the hospital. I'll be like, bro, get out of my face. I wouldn't trust him. Maybe that's me being cynical, but I would just definitely be like, this guy's a weird dude. I'm out. Yeah, good luck on that. So society is good. Like, someone picked him up and put him in their car. He's soaking wet, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, I feel you there. I would hope if someone was hypothermic, like, you know, purple lips, and
I'd hope so
and there's
too,
a child. I mean, just the fact there's a child shivering on this guy's back, I'd be like.
Well, the reason I say that is I was just at South Station and
in Boston. That's the big train terminal.
Yeah, it was like 4 a.m.
Why were you at South Station at 4 a.m.?
Flight got delayed and from San Diego landed. I was gonna stay at a hotel, but it got delayed so much that I got in at like 3:30 a.m. So like, the first train out was 6:30. So I went to a diner for an hour, and then I was like, I'll just go to South Station. I'm sure people will be there. I'll just like hang out. It was just all 25 homeless people walking around. It was like a zombie apocalypse.
People will be
there. I was
there?
very, very scared for my life. And they just came, people would just keep up with me. It was like, hey, I need like this, and this because of this. And I'm like, totally. It's just like, it really made me question it all about things, everything about society.
I like how your mentality is at 4:30 in the morning. I'm going to go to the biggest train station in Boston and think people will be there. So like, it'll be cool. I'll be with the people.
Yeah, it was also like freezing in there. It wasn't warm at all. So I was just like, this is the most. I was also on no sleep, obviously. So
yeah, you should have stayed at the diner. Got some French toast.
It was also snowing too. So
drink coffee nonstop and. You know.
Yeah, I probably should have, but what are you gonna do?
I like that story though. I'm a big fan of that one. My love was the parallel narratives. I thought that played well in this book. I thought it was a good way to do it, where we witness the whole, or we don't even see the plane crash itself. Isn't really a thing. After Scott, saves JJ and they go back, then it jumps into all the other characters and what they did, kind of going up to the plane crash, plus these ancillary characters like the police and stuff like that. So I was a fan of that. How did you feel about that?
I wish there was a little bit more understanding for why, like, Bill Cunningham's bad because he didn't go to Ivy League school, and he was like, everyone doubted me, so I'm gonna be a piece of shit for the rest of my life. It's like, all right, I guess.
Yeah, and the pilot who ends up taking everyone down and has like a nepotism issues, like his grandfather's a governor, or his uncle's a governor.
Yeah, I had too good of a life early when I was younger, so I'm pissed at everyone.
Everyone was mad at me because I was the kicker on the football team because my uncle allowed, which also, I guess that's a hate for me, because if there is one thing that is purely merit-based, it's sports. Obviously, there can be, when you're in Little League, like the father puts his son as the pitcher or whatever the case is, there's some nepo situation there. But once you're in college, you're not getting on the starting roster because your uncle is in politics. Football coaches want to win.
That dude in particular, all of the sports stuff he was talking about was not well researched. He was talking about throwing a knuckle slider. That's not a real pitch. Like, what are you talking about? That's a wiffle ball pitch, maybe. Yeah. Not. They were like, everything that was referenced there, I was like, this would never happen in any real sports world. I mean, other than the French toast hands, that's a real common saying. Everyone says that. That's fair, but everything else didn't make any sense.
What about hates?
Oh, how at the end, when it's most convenient, does he all of a sudden remember
that
the
was my only
killed
hate.
them all?
That was my only hate.
I didn't get that.
It was like all of a sudden Bill Cunningham's chatting with him and he's remembers it all even though he couldn't remember it before, and he's saying it's all cloudy. That would immediately reopen the case for me if I was the cops. I'd be like, wait, we've had so many conversations with you and you forgot, and then now all of a sudden you remember?
Yeah, it was awfully convenient.
I mean, I understand that sometimes as you're talking about something, it can flesh out some memories, but that seemed pretty specific. And it was slowly coming back to him throughout the book, but at the same time, nah, I don't think so.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so, I mean, that was really my only hate besides like some of the stuff we talked about. I guess on the whole, I liked the book. I guess I liked it, but it was like, 60% on Rotten Tomatoes liked it, where I was like, oh, that was fine. But if someone said, should I read it? I'd say, probably not. Out of other ones that we've done on the pod in this wheelhouse, I feel like there's other ones. If someone wanted a thriller,
well, I think there's a lot of ones on this pod that I did not like. I did hate it.
Agreed.
This one was not that.
Exactly.
So.
Somewhere in the middle.
Agreed.
How do you feel about art? Has it ever moved you? You a big art guy?
Art's like dreams. I think we already had this discussion already, but I don't know.
Yeah, probably. We've had hundreds of hours of this.
What do you think about art?
In general, I'm not a big art guy. My mom and stepdad and my dad and my stepmom all went to Paris separately recently, and they were saying how crowded it was or whatnot, and I went as a kid and I was like, yeah, I'm probably good, I don't need to go back. Like, I went to the Louvre and I was like, it was whatever. And my my cousin who was in the room, big art guy, he's like, I could spend days and days and days in the Louvre. And I was like, fucking go for it, buddy. So, I understand that people, are big art people and like that stuff, but I don't know. I'd rather catch a ball game.
I think we've talked about this before, but I get jazzed up when other people are jazzed up about things. If someone gets excited about something, I can get excited about it usually. Yeah. Someone's like, oh, Dungeons and Dragons is fucking awesome. I'm like, yo, let me jump right. Oh, yeah, you did that. Yeah, but I could jump in. But the problem with most art people are they're not like, oh man, I'll tell you why I love this so much. Like it's like this is so sick that he did this painting when he was blind and had one ear and whatever, blah blah blah, and like look at the strokes here. If someone did that to me, I'd be like, oh, it is sick. But instead, most art people, and again, this could be stereotyping, but they're like, you don't like that? Like, yeah, you just don't get it. They're just gonna talk down to you about it, and you're like, well, why the fuck would I want to be like part of this then?
So I'm 100% on the same page as you. I'll get jazzed up about anything if someone's jazzed up about it and like wants to talk about it. Which is why if I ever do these art stuff and they offer it, I'll always get the audio tour because it's pretty straight to the point, but they give you a little history background, and then they talk about, like, if you look at the bottom left corner, you see like these specific brush strokes, and you're looking at it, you're like, oh, okay, yeah, I see that. Oh, interesting. And like at this time, some this, and what happened. It's like, oh, okay, like now I'm interested in it. I think art is also about how it makes you feel and stuff like that, and it's really just not how I'm wired. Like, I'm the actuarial guy. I'm like, whatever. I don't know. Tell me about how there's 40 million brushstrokes on this, and I'm trying to do the math at how long that must have taken to do 40 million brushstrokes. So, well, that was before the fall. I think I'd give it a 2 out of 4 buddies. I'm going to rate them this year. I'm going to go for a rating.
For when we finish the year, we can do like what people do on Reddit, where they're like, here's the 57 books I read, and here's the ratings and all of them. Yeah. I was like, Jesus.
So just because we're doing this, I was reading reviews of this book afterwards, and the top one on Goodreads was this woman saying she's like, I've read, like, the first thing she has to say is how many books she's read. She goes, I've read 107 books since January. And I was like, dang, that's a lot of books to read in a year. I look at when it was posted. It was the end of February. I was like, you've read 50 books a month? What?
Yeah, that's not even fun. That would be awful.
It sounds terrible, honestly. So, yeah, I'm not for it. Yeah. Well, with that, what do we got coming up next after Before the Fall, our first of 2025?
We have another listener recommendation. The Winter King, the Warlord Trilogy by Bernard Cornwell. Get your thesaurus out. Get your history book out. Bring your education levels that are higher than middle school, because you're going to need them. I'm struggling, but that's okay.
Yeah.
That's what we do. You got to challenge yourself
It's
sometime.
like an Arthurian tale that's written like it was by the guy who did 1776. The story about the year 1776. It was basically by... like an Arthurian tale by a history professor is what it kind of sounds like.
It's Arthur tale, for those that don't know what Arthurian means. Jesus Christ. I was like, what are you talking about? King Arthur.
Yeah, King Arthur. So, yeah, the Winter King, check it out. Not too long. So, yeah, we'll catch you back for that.
Indeed.
All right.
Good seeing you. 2025, here we come.
All right. Bye now.
All right, bye now.